Boom. We are live.
Let's go. Let's get it rolling.
Vivint, Premier Energy. We're here 2023, baby. We got Brandon Reeves over here. We got Zach Murdoch and Tanner Leishman. Thank you all. Welcome. It's pretty cool. We were talking about this before. We got over 20 years of solar experience in here. And just wanted to be able to kick off with a bang. This is like some of the most exciting times of the year as we're gearing up, sending people out throughout the nation, ready to go get it. And so a lot of you guys have asked for a little bit more content and, some solid training, some direction on solar and everything else. And so wanted to get all these guys, like I said, 20 plus years of experience, and we're going to put together some gems today. So thank you guys for being here.
Can't wait. Absolutely.
Do it. Of course.
First off, let's kind of talk about the landscape of solar. We always call it the solar coaster, and it's been exactly that for the last year, and it will continue to be that, and we'll continue to work through it. But honestly, a super, super exciting time. We've had a lot of shifts in the industry. We've had interest rates spike. We've had, different net metering changes, people moving out of states, moving into other states. And so really, really exciting time though. I'd say overall, the upside, and we still see utility rates spiking and people fired up to get out there. What are your guys kind of takes on solar coming up this summer and what we can expect?
It's kind of cliche to say that there's never been a better time to go sell solar than right now. It's honestly the honest truth. In my 9 years, going on 10 years of doing solar, every year has gotten a little bit better. Things are changing. The landscape changed, and it gets getting better for me and better for me and better for me. And I think it's the same right now. We live in a world of uncertainty. Things are going on, inflation's crazy, things are nuts, but we get to go bring a product that brings kind of stability, I think, right? It's more of a secure thing. We bring a product that's a needed product, thing that's going to make an impact on their lives. It's not a luxury per se, right? It's not spending or wasting money. We got to go door to door, bringing security in a very kind of unsecure, safe world right now. So I think the demand for solar has never been kind of at like a higher peak than it is right now, because it's a crazy world that we live in, and solar can kind of bring security and peace of mind. It's a needed product.
I actually love that. I mean, it's, and the cool thing with all the smart home pieces, it's not only are we, protecting a home, but actually protecting their pocketbook and a little bit of peace of mind from outside of the whole security piece, of peace of mind in finances, right? Like you're saying, we're in this world of kind of the unknown and what's going to happen, where we can go and say, hey, this is a fixed price on your power bill. This is what you're going to expect for the next 20, 30 years is actually pretty powerful. So that's a great perspective. How about you guys?
Yeah, same thing. I mean, as the solar industry has matured, I think we've got more options as far as where we can go with it. Mm-hmm. I remember when I started back in California, we talked about today. We were like, look, this industry is not going anywhere. It's great in California right now, but it's just going to sweep the country as utility rates keep going up. Mm-hmm. And so we have more states to sell in, more installers. The technology for proposals and helping the customer out is getting better. So it's just trending in the right direction. So I'm super excited about 2023. I honestly think it's, like Brandon said, the best time to be selling, because we have so many options where we want to go, so on and so forth.
Love it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just going to echo what these guys have said. I really don't think there's any better spot to be right now for every single reason these guys have said. Plus, we can make a killer commission on the side too. So we're going out there. We're saving these homeowners so much money, and securing their future, getting them off of inflation, off of rate hikes. But then we're also making a pretty penny too. So it's a win-win.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you can't knock it.
Tanner's all about the money.
So let's dive into this a little bit. We've got a lot. I mean, we're gonna have well over 100 guys deploying here, solar specific. A lot of them are going to be rookies. Some of these guys, sophomores, and obviously vets. But I think being able to kind of get a surface level of, a pitch and kind of how solar works in general, right? If we were to, why, when we say it's such a great time, we obviously know, it's protecting against rate hikes, it's inflation, it's, great commissions, it's sweeping the nation. But why? Like, why would a customer be going solar right now? Why does solar make sense? And kind of how does that whole thing work, if that question makes sense?
Essentially, solar, I've always said it, and I use it in the clothes and I use it on the doors. It really is a no-brainer, because all you're doing is taking a bill that you already have to pay, and you're just replacing it with a cheaper bill, right? On top of that, you're also taking your money that you would normally invest in just an empty investment, and you're going to return it back in your own property. So from a product standpoint, that's actually one of the reasons why I got into solar in the beginning, was because it really is so financially smart for the homeowner, to where I can sit there at their table and confidently tell them and believe fully in my product and say, hey, you have to do this, because to not do it doesn't make any sense. Right. So that's why I fell in love with the product, and nothing's changing. It just keeps happening. And we're just helping people out even more than we were back in the day.
Sure.
Right?
So I think, and the reason it would be a no-brainer is you've got, obviously most people who are proactive people, progressive, they own their homes, they own their vehicles, they own most assets in their life. And I think a lot of times, obviously, people don't realize how powerful it can be to own your power. Just like anything else, a utility, a lot of them can have monopolies on a state or on a city, whatever it may be. And you're kind of up to their discretion, right? Where this just gives you a little bit of control in the situation to be able to go and hedge against what they could potentially go and do. Explain that a little bit more, Brandon.
Yeah, that, in my opinion, that's actually the biggest piece and the biggest reason why solar is such an appeal. The day one savings is amazing. Like I don't know very many products where you can go take a bill, replace it, and save some money. That's more,
and not always are you saving someone money, and so
right.
I think that this part's important.
That's what I was going to say. But we're going to go to some markets where you won't get day one savings, right? Where utility might be cheap as it is today, or maybe they just don't use a lot of power, or whatever it is. The true, I guess, power of solar is that taking control and that ownership, just like they do in everything else in their lives, with their houses, with their cars, right? They got to go do that with their power bill now. So what happens? We always related it to like the gas analogy, right? You go back 20 years, they were selling gas at $1 a gallon or whatever it is. Those guys would have been stoked to lock it in. Hey, don't pay more, don't pay less, lock in $1 a gallon. Today, they'd be jumping with joy, right? Because we're paying $5, $6, $7 a gallon sometimes. We go do that with their power bill. We say, hey, you're paying $100 a month. Why don't you go from renting that $100 a month power payment, switch that into an ownership payment. Keep paying $100 a month, lock it in, control it, have it never increase on you 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the road. That kind of multiplier effect is a massive result back in the customer's pockets, right? So if we can save you $10 a month day one, that's great. If it's a bill swap, even if it's $5, $10 more a month, that's not the real value of solar. It's taking control, it's taking the ownership and having financial freedom for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
Sure.
And just to add one thing real quick, I mean, the importance of believing in your product, because I remember when I was new in solar, I had a doubt in my mind about that. I was like, is this really beneficial right now if maybe I'm charging them more or I'm doing a bill swap? And looking back on those customers that I set up, I mean, utility rates have almost doubled since I set them up. So the power of just believing and knowing that this product really is going to help them so much is so important to, one, your confidence in the sell, but just knowing that you're actually doing something good for your customers.
And I think to kind of, again, really, really getting basic with this, but a lot of these guys that are coming, very, very first year, this is their intro into solar. It's the way that you're locking in that rate and that you're having them own it is that you're actually financing their equipment, right? So just like when you go and buy a car or anything else, and you're just paying towards the principal as you're paying your monthly utility bill. Yep. And so that thing gets paid off over time, right? So whether it's a $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 solar system, you're going to have that thing paid off by the end of the term, and you're actually going to have no more power bill. And so, that's kind of why this whole thing makes sense. And again, it may not make sense for every single person out there, but the majority of these people that own their homes, they live in their homes, you're going to find plenty of reasons and people that it's going to make sense for. So as we're going out now that, you get this kind of general idea of what solar is and why it's beneficial to the homeowner. Why would everyone not be doing this?
Lack of info.
There we go.
That's the golden question.
I love it.
We sit down with homeowners, we ask them that question. And to be honest, I mean, maybe this is jumping ahead a little bit, but when I am closing somebody, that's my question at the end. Like, I've presented all this information to you. Why wouldn't you do this?
Yeah.
And I've yet to get a good answer.
It's a no-brainer. Yep. So I think that it's information. It's obviously how are you going to go and present to these people, right? A lot of these people have been pitched 100 times about solar, or some people don't even want to use the S word anymore, and they try and come up with any way to get around that. So let's talk about that a little bit, right? When for these setters that are just going out, this is their first time, in market, beginning of the summer, and they're trying to go and set bills and get people to listen to them. What have you guys kind of found to be the most effective way to set a bill and to go and get a picture of a power bill and to get through that stuff? And we'll really kind of dissect that part, because I think it's really important. You don't get bills, you're not getting a deal.
Mm-hmm. I think the foundation of any pitch or any presentation is you're going to go knock on thousands of doors. It boils down to 3 components of your pitch, right? You have to be able to introduce a problem so that they understand it, they can digest it, they understand what's going on, how it's impacting that homeowner specifically. You then need to present the solution to that, which obviously is solar, right? But it's going to take some kind of education behind that. So you introduce the problem, how there's a solution to that problem. And then the third piece is just make a friend, right? As simple and cliche as that's what we boil all of our trainings down to. If you can introduce a problem, if you can provide a solution to that problem, and then you can be a personable dude that's easy to talk to, that's easy to go connect with, that they're willing to hear out, that's kind of your math equation to go have success on the doors.
I'm going to cut you off real quick, because I couldn't agree more. The only thing I would say is it's almost backwards from that. Like the most important thing you can do out the gates as you guys are started, as you go, going to knock doors, you're deploying in a neighborhood, is to make a friend, yes. Right? Like find common ground at the gates, out the gates. When you're walking up to a house, and a lot of that's the prospecting piece, like you guys are all smart people. A lot of you guys love sports. You have family. I mean, there's literally something on probably every doorstep that you can find common ground with. And I think it's so important that when you get up there, you can find common ground, you can start talking to them. Then they're actually going to listen to you, because then you're going to go and present the problem. Then you're going to present the solution, and you're going to have a lot better odds, obviously, getting that the final goal of getting a deal. But so as far as just kind of a really, really basic pitch, when you're talking about that, so you found common ground, what are you saying to someone that's going to give you, 30 seconds of airtime out the gates?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, think about a lot of the things we've talked about so far. When I'm going and I'm pitching somebody, a lot of the pros about solar that we're talking about, why it's such a great industry, that's what I'm going to tell these homeowners too. Like, hey, we're going to lock in your rate from any utility company inflation or any rate hikes or anything like that. We're going to increase the value of your home. We're going to, own your power. All those things are the things that I'm going to bring up as I'm pitching these homeowners. Be like, I'm sure you've seen a lot of the solar projects going on in the neighborhood. Have you ever wondered why people are doing that? I'm a big believer in too, if you can get the homeowner to present their problem to you and then you be the problem solver, that's going to really secure the bill and the appointment for you. It's going to make sure that appointment sits if you can get them to present it and then you come up with the solution. So, thinking of all these things that we've talked about, hey, I'm sure you've seen the rates of power go up so much in the last 5 years. They've gone up in my house. They had to have gone up here. How much have they gone up for you? Different things like that.
Yeah.
Just real quick. I love that he said that he gets the customer to kind of introduce that problem. Where solar think's really unique is there's 1,000 problems for us to go correct. Right? Like there's 100 things that solar can go fix, whether it's those rate increases, whether it's asset versus liability, right? Whether it's clean energy versus dirty energy. So whatever is impacting that homeowner, awesome. That makes sense. It's impacting all of us. We have a solution to that. And we can kind of customize what that issue is, door to door, home to home, area to area.
Yeah. It's interesting when you bring up the gas prices. So that was actually something that I would, bring up even on the door last year, was that there's a lot of ways that you can go and find common ground. And one thing is just something that you have in, that you have in common. And so last year when gas prices, and they still are, but gas prices are super out of whack, I'm like, hey, if you guys are seeing gas, you guys see gas prices every single day, labeled up there, and they just keep going up and up and up, and people are freaking out, but there's nothing we can do. Like we have to go and fill up our vehicles. The exact same thing is happening behind the scenes with utilities. And there actually is something that you can do about it. And it's really, again, it's like this common ground of, hey, this is a pain point that we all share. Like no one wants to be spending all this money on gas, but it's out of our control. Well, again, same thing is happening right now to all of us, but we actually can go and do something. You can go and do something. You can be part of that solution. And again, it's not always just finding something to talk about, but actually like sharing a common problem and whatever else. So I think there's so many ways on the doorstep, and it really is that, right? It's everything that we've kind of talked about, you guys can break down the pieces or talk with your manager or your buddies about what has been working for them. But as long as you kind of have that mindset of, okay, what do we have in common? What are the problems here, and what are the solutions? And even better, what are your problems, right? Because someone else could have something completely different, and a handful of different objections. One that is a very, very common asked, objection of how do you get past this is, well, I'm not interested in that because what if I'm going to move? How are you guys kind of tackling that one, or really breaking down if that's an actual smokescreen or if it's a true objection?
Yeah, my 2 cents on that is I treat smoke screens and objections kind of differently. If I'm at somebody's doorstep and they're like, "Oh, I'm moving," that's going to be a smoke screen to me. I'm going to blow through that, and I'm going to find a way to set that appointment and get the bill. If I'm sitting in their house trying to close the deal and they bring up that they're going to move sometime in the next 2, 3, 5 years, then I know it's a legit objection that I need to overcome. My point, the way I choose to tackle that is, look, if you're going to be in the house for at least another year, it's going to make sense because you're going to be able to see either day one savings, or you're going to increase the value of your home enough that when you go to sell your house, one, you can either transfer it right over to the next homeowner, right? And they'll come in, they're going to love it. It's going to be a fixed payment. They're not going to have the same thing that you think about right now, the fluctuation of their power bill. They're going to have a fixed bill, but also just because you're adding solar to the house, you're going to get a little bit more value in your house. So if you're going to be here for at least another year, 100%, we're going to make this make sense for you.
Cool. So this is, I think, could be one of the more important pieces that I want to talk about next, but we've done everything on the doorstep. We piqued some interest. We found some common ground. We've gone through all that. Now it's actually getting the bill. Because that's the most important piece that we need. That's the reason that we're knocking on their doorstep. We need, it gives us the information that we need to be able to make sure that this thing's going to make sense. What does that look like? What is getting a bill? Is it a paper bill that everyone's just going to know where it's at? Is it, on their phone that you're helping them log into? Is it, what are you guys doing to go and come away with that bill from talking to them on their doorstep for a couple minutes?
Basically, what I normally do is you have to give them a reason why you need their bill. Right. So what I always say is, hey, the last thing we need to look at just to build your energy savings report is I just need to see how much energy your home uses specifically, because your home and your neighbor's home and the house across the street, you guys are all going to use a different amount of energy. So do you guys normally get your utility bill online, or do you guys get a paper copy in the mail? And I'm just going to option close them there because it's one or the other. Yep. Right. They're going to give me that answer. And if they say paper, I'm just going to assertively say, great, if you could just run in real quick and grab that for me, that'd be awesome. I'm just going to wait here. And I'm just going to stop and start looking at my iPad and waiting for them to go get it. Right.
Yep.
Sometimes if they have it online, then sometimes they can just pull it right up. Sometimes they don't have the account information. A lot of times, a little problem solving, do a little forgot password, reset the password, whatever you got to do to get in there. But that's going to be the most important key is just, being creative right there and making sure you can just snag that bill. But that's kind of the way that I normally do it.
Well, and I think it's really important that you say kind of doing making sure that you get it, because people, you have to get comfortable with the uncomfortable, right? Totally. You've got to be able to go, if you do not get that bill, you are not getting a deal. You're not getting a commission. And so you've got to help them go. Every single person is getting a utility bill, right? They're all getting it. Are they getting it paper? Are they getting it on the, or do you need to help them create an account to get that thing? And obviously don't burn your day doing it, but it's so important to go and get that. And I feel like a lot of times people are like, they're going to give you that smoke screen of, oh, well, I couldn't find it, or, come back and grab it, whatever. It's like, no. This takes me 2 seconds. I can help you. I do this all the time. Let me help you pull it up really quick here. You can just go on your forgot password, whatever it may be. So I really wanted to emphasize that point because that's what you're on their door to do.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, sometimes depending on your utility market too, check with your manager, but a lot of times you can actually call into the utility and get their information there as well. And if you're able to do that, that's a superpower, because if they try to give you that smoke screen, I would just pull out my phone and be like, oh, no problem. We can actually just get it right now. And I'm dialing. I have them on hold right there. And 90% of the time, the customer's not going to back out.
Yep.
So last resort, if you're able to do that with your utility, go for it 100%.
Just to add on to all of that too, because amen. Could have said it any better. Customers, it just has to make sense. So Zach hit on that, right? What's the reason why you need the utility bill? The customer has to understand that. we're not stealing your info. We're not paying your bills for you. We need to do this so we can bring you back an actual report, right? So I think you can add one more thing. Even one thing I kind of add in on that is before I ask for the bill, I actually will. So we've gone over the problem. We've made a friend. We've gone over a problem. We presented a solution. Interest is kind of peaked, right? So we're making that transition to grabbing the bill. I actually like to schedule my appointment first, right? So I'm like, awesome. Here's a problem. Here's a solution. I want to send this into our engineers, get a report back. I can come back either this afternoon at 5 or tomorrow evening. Which one works better for you? I'll come back tonight at 5. We're home. My wife's home, whatever. They are just soft close themselves, right? They've committed to sit down, meet with you, take the time to get this information. Perfect. When I come back at 5, I'll bring you the report. The only thing I need from you is your utility bill because I need XYZ to make sure that report is accurate, right? It's going to be a lot easier and a lot more, I guess, easier for them to go grab that bill because what's the point of setting the appointment if he can't even bring me back the actual information, right? So schedule the appointment. They soft close themselves. Essentially, they lock themselves into that appointment. Awesome. For this to be effective, just go grab me that bill so I can run an accurate report. And I think it'll kind of soften that transition to asking for the bill. And it's just really assumptive, like Zach kind of hit on there at the end.
And honestly, I can't echo that enough because I've actually done it both ways. Originally, when I started in solar, we would get the bill and then set the appointment. That way is so much better. So if you're not being trained to do it that way, switch over.
Cool. Yeah.
That's my advice because it really is so much better. And the other thing, I don't know if we're going to go over this, but when you are setting that appointment, make sure you set it as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Because if you can't do same day or next day, the odds of that appointment sitting dives dramatically.
No, that literally segues into what we want to go into next. You know, we've now gotten the bill. We've done what we need to do to get that bill. And now it's setting an effective appointment, right? It's giving them enough information to kind of have them wanting a little bit more. You've kind of put out the hook. But what are some best practices for a setter to set the best appointment? What are these closers looking for, as they're going and knocking back on that door?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that I would say is, you want the decision maker there. And not all the time are you going to pull the bill from the decision maker. Maybe you pull the bill from the wife and the husband's going to make the decision and vice versa. So I would say when you're setting that appointment, in order to make it sticky and solid, you just want to confirm like, hey, look, I'm sure if you're married, if you have a spouse, I'm sure you guys make these types of decisions together, right? Okay, perfect. Are they going to be home at this time that we've set? If not, let's find a time when they're going to be home. We can all sit down together. Because the last thing your closer is going to want to do is show up to that appointment and have the wife say, oh, I need to talk to my husband or I need to talk to my wife. You know what I mean? So I would say, make sure you get all the decision makers there. The second thing is go over the appointment time like 2 or 3 times. I'll even make it a joke sometimes. Like I'll set the appointment and I'll say, okay, I'm going to come back, tonight at 6. And then maybe I'll like build a little rapport, ask about their truck. And they'll be like, okay, what time am I coming back tonight? And I'll quiz them. And they'll be like, oh, I can't remember. 6, right? Okay, cool. And then I'll even do it again one more time before I leave. Like 6 o'clock tonight, right? Just because then the last thing they're going to remember is he's coming back at 6 o'clock tonight. And I need to be ready. So different things like that. The last thing I'd say too is, everybody, we respect homeowners' time. But they also kind of need to respect our time too.
Sure.
We're working professionals. We're trying to provide for our families. At the end of the conversation, I'm going to say, look, if for whatever reason you can't make this appointment, I'm going to text you right now so you have my number. Shoot me a text because there's so many homeowners that I'm meeting with every single day. Somebody else will take your spot. So please just let me know.
So have you felt like that has, because I think some people would argue on that. Have you found that is absolutely more effective than the alternative of just like, no matter what going, like, do you feel like people try and get out of it more often? Or are you just like, no, I'd way rather have a solid appointment than, and get known that, or have them text me than take the chance of going to the house and not getting it?
I look at it like this, because when I first started doing solar, when I was like 100% self-gen, I would just go back. I wouldn't really confirm. But that was also because I built so much rapport with that homeowner at the door that I had enough rapport to go back and just go talk to him. If I'm the closer going back to an appointment for somebody that said it, I want that appointment confirmed 100%. I would way rather go to 2 solid appointments every day than have 10 iffy appointments on my calendar. I feel way more comfortable going to just those 2 that have confirmed because I know that I'm going to be able to go sit down and we're going to be able to talk.
And it's not about overdoing it too, because I actually love that approach. I'd rather have a way solid one that's confirmed than a bunch of wishy-washy. But at the same time, like saying, you don't need to give them 18 opportunities to cancel. You send them a text right as you're on the hand. We'll send you a text. You got my number. There's their window of opportunity. If they truly want to be proactive and cancel, they want that solid, go replace it with 2 or 3 others, right? We're not saying you need text right at the door an hour before the appointment, where you give them multiple opportunities to get that window to cancel, right? But you give them, if they want to cancel, if they're not that solid, sweet, go replace it with 2 others, like Tanner's saying. I couldn't agree more with that.
And just echoing back kind of to how we started, it's like the sooner you can set the appointment, the better. It really is. The other thing is, one thing I would throw in there is just set proper expectations. If you're a setter or if you're self-genning for yourself, whatever, because we talk a lot about, hey, we're going to bring by this energy savings report. And a lot of people are like, sweet, you're going to drop it off on my doorstep. Like, they need to understand that when we come back, we're planning on going in, sitting down at the table, going over the information with them. And we don't have to, explain that whole thing. But if you're a setter, do explain, hey, my closer is going to come back. He's going to take 10, 15 minutes and sit down with you guys. That saves the closer so much time of battling, trying to get in the house. And it makes that appointment so much more solid. Yeah.
So we've now set a deal. We got the closer coming back. When you're coming in, absolutely, like setting that expectation of, hey, I'm coming in the home. Obviously, as the closer, you're coming in with that expectation, and you're just kind of assuming the sale, right, of walking into the home. Totally. So we'll kind of dive into that piece a little bit, right? Like we've gotten this, we've kind of gone back, we built the proposal, the design, and all that stuff, or we've gotten all the information that we need. We're showing back up. What have you guys found? So for me personally, and I'm pretty passionate about this one, just in sales in general, it seems like we oversell a lot, and especially with solar, because there's so many exciting things about it, right? That we've spent almost 30 minutes talking about all the reasons of why people should be doing it. I feel like a lot of times we'll get in and spin our wheels because we're so excited to give this customer has this appointment, that we see this great design, this great proposal, that we just go off on information. I'm a big believer that like less is more in this scenario. And it's really, really good to kind of almost start off with questions, right? Like, what do you guys know about solar? There's a lot of misconceptions, a lot of misunderstandings. What do you guys know about solar? Do you know how it works? And then a lot of times they'll be like, oh yeah, well, like this is what and they'll tell you a ton of stuff. You're like, oh yeah, so a bunch. I'll kind of preface it with, hey, what do you guys know about solar? Most people, don't really know a ton. And so I don't want them to feel dumb if they don't know anything about solar, but they'll kind of tell us what we need to know a lot of times. And I'm not going to go and worry about like harping on all this stuff just because in a traditional pitch, you'd go through and cover, this part. If they already know it, don't worry about going in and go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm just sorry. Amen. This is my biggest pet peeve, I think, when it comes to solar closers. I think this is the biggest distinguisher between, if we're being frank, a rookie closer who's learning the job and a vet who kind of knows how to go get the job done. As you see a lot of people in the industry, it's almost like a one size fits all, right? Yep. They go into every home and they say the same word and they hit the same bullet points and they hit every bullet point in every single home. And when you're doing that, you're just firing targets in the dark, right? Yep. You're hoping that what you're hitting is relevant to them. It's as simple as what you said is I start every presentation. Hey, what have you heard about solar? What do you like about it? What do you know? What's turned you off on it? Like what's the reason why you haven't pulled the trigger? With those 2 questions, 1 or 2 questions, they will give you all the info that you need to then go customize that presentation to the homeowner.
Sure.
Right? Hey, man, I think solar's really cool. My cousin got it. He said it was nothing out of pocket. I thought that was cool. We haven't quite pulled the trigger yet. I heard you get 2 bills when you get solar. I got no interest in that. You now know how to go customize the rest of his presentation for that guy off the info that he gave you.
Yep.
Let me throw in a little piece with that too, because I think there's a couple really important things. One, to your point, Brad, if you look at some of the most like effective sales trainings, that's what they train you to do. They train you to really sell people on 3 different ideas. Like, you don't need to spend your whole presentation going through all 1,000 things of why solar is so amazing.
Sure.
Pick the 3 things that the homeowner actually needs. But I think to Brandon's point too, I would say for a new rep or a new rookie that is, transitioning from setting to self-genning, or maybe they're starting to close deals, I wouldn't be afraid to at least have a memorized deck to go through and close somebody.
Yep.
The reason why I say that is when I first started in solar, I was what Brandon just described. I went into every appointment. I said the exact same thing every single time. As my knowledge got better and I learned more, then I became more of like the savvy closer, right? I could ask questions. I could get people to, and I only had to sell them on 2 or 3 things. Yep. I would say just throwing that in is don't be afraid to go close a deal if you feel confident in going through a deck and just pitching somebody.
Sure.
Right? Because I think you can have a ton of success doing it that way.
For sure.
But what it's going to take you from is going to take you from maybe getting 1 or 2 a week to getting 1 or 2 a day. To 6 or 7 a week.
No, and I couldn't agree more. I think the important piece about it is just, we call it mapping your flow, like just knowing what the end goal is and where you're trying to get to by the end. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so, whether it's knowing a deck and exactly what you need to go through. But I think even as a rookie and hardly knowing anything, if you ask the right questions out the gates, it's going to give you a lot better idea. Now you can go through every little piece, and I would encourage that exact same thing because, it turns into a whole different game as, like you said, you become a little bit more savvy and you can read them and know what they're kind of looking for. But most of the time a sale is actually more about overcoming any objection than it is giving them information. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times that opportunity with those questions out the gates, it's going to give you what their potential objections are. Totally. And then knowing where you're going, okay, I have to start talking about this, but I need to end right here. Is super powerful. So I think that's a great point. Yeah.
In today's day and age, I mean, as recently, it's like 95% of people have probably had a solar guy sitting in their kitchen table.
Yeah.
Right. And so I almost just walk in with that assumption. If you're in a completely virgin market, that's awesome, but it's pretty rare now. So I always just walk in with that just in my forefront of my mind. Like, okay, why didn't this person go solar last time? And just through simple questions like they're talking about, if I can find that hot button, I know the deal's done.
Yep.
So it's just really just second and third level questioning until I can figure that out and just making sure that I can find that objection. The other thing is in a close, you're always going to have a couple of objections that come up every single time. Yeah. Moving, warranties, roof, price. So what I always try to do is I try to cover that information every single close I'm going through before the customer hits me with the objection, right?
Yep.
So that kind of keeps the ball in my court and I can kind of take care of that objection before it becomes a huge worry in their mind.
Yep. And I think just assuming the sale is really what you're almost saying, right? Mm-hmm. Like taking them through a deck is just assuming the sale all the way through. A lot of times people get afraid of the next step. I would challenge everyone to be really competent in what they're talking about. You don't have to be perfect. But at the end of the day, like this is it actually is a little bit of a big deal, right? Like what you're going through. You're going through financing program. You're going and putting on panels. You're making a commitment. And so I think it's our responsibility to go and make sure that we're educated to be able to take that to the customers because we want to be doing right by the customers. And so, but not only that, when you're competent, you're going to be confident. Like when you know what the next step is and you know the answers to their questions as you're going through it, you're going to be way, way, way more successful. And so as you're kind of going through it and you're assuming the sale and you've, kind of checked a lot of the boxes, there's so many ways to kind of wrap up a deal. What have you guys kind of found the most effective ways to actually go for the jugular on this thing? They've either given us a lot of objections and we've overcame them, or they've had no objections, which we get those as well. What are you guys kind of doing to go and be like, all right, boom, like I need to get loan docs signed. I need to get someone out here doing a site survey.
For me, that transition to the close, right? Running credit, signing docs, all that type of stuff happens way earlier than the end of the presentation, right? So just softly talking, we always want to be doing soft closes, soft tie downs to the entire presentation. So on a very surface level type thing, whenever I kind of hit one of those pillars of my presentation, we're talking something about important, covering a topic or answering a question, before I'm going to move on from there, I'm always going to end that kind of part of the sales process with any questions, anything not make sense to you, anything not adding up. I'm going to get them to confirm with me. Nope, sounds good. No problems there. That does two things. That's a soft close on themselves. The more soft closes you get, the easier it is at that final transition to the close. But B, if there is an issue and we're skipping by that and they're mentally stuck at a question that they had when you're talking about the design or financing and you try to make that transition, it's never going to work. So you do two birds with one stone. Make sure they're not mentally stuck there, but make sure they're tying themselves down. If you do that all the way through, right? And you go, awesome. Any issues, any problems, anything that doesn't make sense or doesn't add up to you? Again, just like on all the other tie downs, I go, no, man, it sounds good. It's no brainer. Perfect. The bad news is not every house qualifies. Here's what we got to do. Boom, 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 boom. My job is to start that process. First thing's this: flip the iPad, run the credit. Very assumptive, very easy. Just kind of take control because they've closed themselves the entire presentation, if that makes sense.
Sure.
I've also found out that if I can sell them on an offset or the amount of power they're using, 90% of the time they're ready to go. So an example would be, if they're trying to decide between 105 and 110% offset, depending on your market. Some markets you're going to sell over, other markets aren't going to allow you to. But if I can make them make a decision between two things, kind of option close them, hey, you guys want to stick with 100 or you guys want to add one more panel and be at 105? If I can get them to bite on that, I think I'd rather overproduce a little bit. Let's go with 105. In my mind, I know that the deal's done right there because they're making up their mind. The other thing is, if they open that door, if they say, hey, do we have to do this today? I've seen, sitting in closes and watching rookies, a lot of times they're really timid. That'd be great. You have to be super assertive right there. Yeah, absolutely. We're going to see if we can get you going today. Make sure we can get you qualified. Because they're sitting, maybe they're sitting on the fence right there. And if you just come in with confidence and you're ready to roll, they're going to roll with you. So that would be a huge thing, is just confidence is so key in a solar close. It's actually it's like the most important thing.
Yeah. And I think, because you've just spent 30, 40 minutes building a ton of rapport. Like it's okay to go and be really calm. And that's in all sales. I had a decade, I guess, of selling smart home, and it's the exact same thing. Like, it's just confidence, and it's answering every one of their questions with confidence. Nate Lords, Sean Cook. I know that Nate Lords is one of he is, his last 40 deals, he hasn't had one cancel. And he is all about this is happening today. You're making a decision today. And he's all about it. And it works, right? A lot of people, I feel like we get gun shy of it, of like, oh, well, let's get you to the next step. Yep. That can waste a lot of time, right? Like, no, let's figure out why would we just get to the next step? Like, this makes way too much sense. You're making the decision and we're doing this thing. It's us that's afraid of that. Because you're afraid of the rejection. Well, I'd way rather have them reject to it and then overcome that than assume that like they're going to come around with time. You know what I mean? And so I think that kind of taking that perspective, which is a little bit different for a lot of people, but really, really being assertive and just confident of, we're making that decision today. You've got way too much, at jeopardy not to, right? And then recircle back why they're making that decision today if you have to. Not just like become all passive and, oh, no, sorry. Like, no, my job's just to get the site survey out here and have them come and check it out. And again, everyone does it different, but I have found and I've watched, the best in the business, and that's the most successful way to do it.
Let me tell you, there's nothing worse than going back to a house 2 or 3 days later just for them to tell you no then.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in, I would rather push for a no in their house on the first time I'm there then go back 2 or 3 a week later, drive back from the new area that I'm in just to go back to their house and have them tell me no. So I'm a big believer in that. Push for the no, push for an answer there, because if they're going to cancel, they're going to tell you no either way. So
love it. This has been super solid. Anything else you guys can kind of think of? As far as or do we want to dive into actually going and getting, docs signed and what we're doing in that, or how do you guys want to wrap this thing up?
If we could just backtrack a little bit, I would love talking on knocking in quote unquote a saturated market.
Okay.
I guess. Let me be very clear. There's no such thing as an unsaturated market in 2023 solar, right? Like, everyone's selling solar. Everyone wants a piece of the pie. So if we could just talk about that for a minute before we wrap it up. The only thing I want to say on that is a saturated market is not an educated market. And we have to be able to distinguish the difference between those. So just because they've been pitched by door-to-door people doesn't mean they actually have been pitched and educated on the pros and benefits that come with solar. Just because someone showed up at their door doesn't mean that they're educated on it. So when we go knock on that door, maybe we are the 10th person there this week or 15th this month or whatever it is, that shouldn't be discouraging to you, because most likely they just haven't been educated correctly on it. And you need to find that way to get them educated more efficiently. Does that make sense? So I don't know if you guys want to add to this, but the only thing I would change, when I'm in those kind of markets, the point of emphasis I believe in, I think, Zach, we talk about this a lot. It's about a quick no and a long yes, right? And those type of markets, meaning I want to get to if they've been pitched 15 times that week, I'd rather get to the core of why they think this isn't good for them and overcome that, have that discussion with the homeowner, than pitching for 15 minutes for them to find out I am actually talking about source. I'm going to dive to that source a little bit quicker and have more of a conversation. Like, hey, I know you've been pitched. Why hasn't it worked for you? Shoot me straight, and then overcome from there.
And I think on that too, it's my personal way of selling is I'm super, super bold. Yeah. And I think that's the best way to do it in a saturated market, because I call it like leveling with them. You have to level with them. Yes. And so when you're leveling with them, it's I'm doing it different than everyone else. I promise you. And I stare them in the face and I'm like, hey, I know you've had 20 people talk to you about it. I promise you, I've been with Vivint for 12 years. I would not be wasting my time and coming to your house if I was doing what everyone else is doing. Let me get that super clear. You know what I mean? Because again, it's like really, really powerful statement of, hey, I'm not here to waste your time. I don't want to waste my time either. Yep. If I was doing what everyone else is doing, I wouldn't be on your doorstep. This is why we're different. Or I'd be like, why have you not gone solar? Just curious, so I can make sure. And you're going to find out really quick. Okay, that totally makes sense. Well, the reason that I've been so busy out here, and all of your neighbors, just so you know, they're in the exact same boat. They've all talked to a ton of people. I just did this person, this person, this person. They all told me the exact same thing. Yep. The reason I was able to help them was because of, A, B, and C. It's it's because we do have better pricing than anyone. Everyone else is just trying to go and make a buck. Our company is all about going and doing it in volume, making sure that we do right by the consumer. We've got the smart home offering. It's fully connected, it's integrated. Blah, whatever that may be. And then kind of like what Nate had talked about, in the last training, is if you're getting a couple no's, it's, you may throw out just kind of like an irresistible offer of $1,000, at the day of install cash, or, anything, or, sometimes I know people even talk about the referral program, and that's actually what they're revolving their pitch around. Like, hey, we believe in community. The more people that go solar, the better it is. And so we'll start with a handful of families where we'll just give them crazy referral program. Yep. And just, again, it's anything that can set you apart from everyone else, but being very, very bold about it. And I've always found that works well, is to just hit them with that. Hey, I'm not going to waste your time. I don't want to waste my time. I've done it for a long time. I wouldn't be here if I was doing what they were doing.
I love that. Exactly. One other thing I wanted to add real quick, especially for the rookies, is if you're just getting into the solar game, learn to be a student of it. Yeah. Be in your manager's ear, learn how the product works, because there's two big reasons why people don't go solar. One, they don't have the information, or two, they have misinformation. And I feel like a lot of time on the door is trying to correct that misinformation they've got, because everyone's aunt, brother's cousin got solar and had a bad experience. Yep. So learn to be a student of the game, learn really how it works, so you can overcome that. And that helps so much in saturated markets where you're running into that. And then you have the confidence to say, hey, why haven't you done it? Yep. Right. And then when they give you that hot button, you have the information to overcome it. So
my thoughts on this too, because I agree with everybody. I think this has been super good. And if you're a rookie watching this is like, I wish I had something like this going into me first starting to sell. But I mean, me and Zach specifically, and I think Brandon too, we started doing solar in California. I mean, up until as recently as we were there 2 weeks ago. And California is, I think we can all agree, probably the most saturated solar market in the United States, right? Yep. But I mean, me and Zach were still there slinging deals every single day, right? And you're still running into people that are having these same experiences. Yep. Obviously, I think the Vivint model in what we have totally breaks every single saturated market. So if you can just put into your mind that, hey, I'm a rep at Vivint, so there's no such thing as a saturated market to me, because I can go in and I can talk to Vivint customers and I can give them a discount. Yep. I can go and sell new business and give them a free smart home system. So that right there is going to set you apart from everybody. Yes. And we really do have the most competitive pricing in the whole industry. Yep. So just really believing, and you have to believe it too, right? Like we talk about this and you can say that you think that, but if you really believe it, and we know obviously, because we've all been around the block, we've worked for different companies, we've heard stories, we've seen it happen. Yep. If you really believe that you do set yourself apart from somebody else, and you can confidently say, hey, I really am different than that guy that talked to you a couple hours ago, last week, whatever, people are really going to see the emotion behind it.
Yeah. And it was all built by design, like Vivint wouldn't be doing it if we weren't doing it how we're doing it. The value proposition, the the value to the customer. I mean, all of those things, that's what we stand behind as a company. And so that's going to naturally translate into our offering and everything else. And so, such great stuff. Absolute gold. And it's really cool. As you were talking, and, you guys had all started in California, but I think between all of us, we probably sold in 15 or more states, and this stuff all translates into every state out there. It may be a little bit different of a net metering program or permitting or, barriers to entry, but really the concept and the design and everything, kind of like you had said, we've been talking about this since solar started, and it's kind of, the playbook is unfolding, and it's our time to kind of go and reap the rewards. And so thank you guys a ton. This has been absolute gold, and so excited to see what our guys go and do. We'll bring more of these things and, kind of hit on some more specific pieces, how to set a lead, the actual mechanics of it. But let's go big.
Big year.
Love it.
Can't
It's
wait.
gonna be a big year. Let's get after it.